She actually talked to me, man.
Get out of here.
Oh, yeah.
I've really gotten into the bad habit of asking a huge amount of questions lately.
It's just a question between friends. You know?
You go to one of those cappuccino places, they let you just sit there.
What are we gonna do there? Talk?
We can talk.
I'll go if I don't have to talk.
She actually talked to me, man.
Not very prepared, Alden.
It's okay. I'll talk you through it. Yeah. Well, welcome to episode 3 of my brand new podcast, 5 Great Questions, where I find someone that I know or don't know and ask them if any of the questions that I send to them, which I usually send to them, 30 minutes, an hour before the episode, if any of those questions spark a good story or a deep answer. The thinking behind this podcast is that on a daily basis, all of us get asked very transactional questions. When are you going to be home? Did you remember to send something or drop something off? But on a regular basis, I feel like most of us don't get asked really good, interesting questions. So that's, in a nutshell, that's the excuse for the podcast. Does that make sense? And there's another person, yes. Does the other person does the other person in your house need to ask you more interesting questions on a daily basis?
Yeah, I think that'd be nice. No, we have pretty interesting questions in our household all the time. So
okay, good. Well, that's good. Okay, so your name is Sari.
Last time I checked.
Yes, last time you checked. And you've known me to ask you questions, interesting questions before just this podcast. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay. Did you receive the questions that I sent you a couple hours ago today?
I did.
You did. Did you have time to look at them? And did any one or two of them spark your interest as the ones that you want to answer?
Sure. I mean, honestly, I thought they were all great questions.
Well, thank you.
So I'm actually somewhat open to letting you pick which questions you want to ask me. And the only question that I kind of struggled with, and I'll be transparent, was number 4. And I'll read the question just so people know what we're referencing. And
Okay.
that was, what have you never done that everyone assumes you have? Share 3. And I didn't really have a great answer for that because I'm just a pretty open, transparent person. I don't think that there's many things out there that people think that I have or assume I have done that I haven't done because I haven't had a lot of experiences. So
Yeah. That one's more of a lighthearted one around around an after dinner party where, like people assume that I used to drive a Volkswagen bus and smoked a lot of weed. And,
yeah.
It's those kind of funny things where you go, yeah, what are assumptions that the world in general has made about you that just aren't true? But those are mostly just icebreakers. So no, the question that I was hoping you would gravitate towards was name a loss that you've had to grieve other than a death.
Yeah. And that's definitely one that resonated with me for sure. So I'm certainly happy to answer that or any one of the other questions that you sent over. So wherever you want to start.
I think let's do that one. Let's go. Sure.
So probably I would say what loss have you grieved other than a death would be transitioning and moving from Los Angeles to the East Coast. And I think for me, there was a myriad of things that happened during that period. And obviously, as a young girl, I always had a dream of working in entertainment and ultimately really being a working actor. That's something that I always saw for myself. And when I dreamed as a little girl, I dreamed big. And I've been pretty blessed and grateful in life. And not to say that I didn't work hard, because everything that I have accomplished in life, I've had to work really, really hard in order to achieve. And it didn't come without struggles and obstacles and challenges all along the way. But that was one of the things that I feel that I never fully achieved. And when
did that, just real quick, when did that what was the spark of that dream? Was it sort of just a standard extroverted, I want to be on stage, or was it?
That's a great question. I think I was just extremely outgoing and fearless as a young child. Precocious, fearless, loved people, loved communicating with people, and I loved storytelling. So I naturally just did it in my own home with friends, with family, and putting on shows. And then as I was able to travel more with my family, got to experience putting kids programs, putting on plays, theater, performances, singing, dancing, acting, all three. And it really resonated with me. And the feedback that I got, of course, most people do enjoy when they hear positive feedback about themselves, words of affirmation.
Right.
It makes you feel valued. It makes you feel important. It makes you feel special. But for me, more than anything, I think it was the feeling that I got. I felt alive. There's a visceral feeling that happens inside your body where you're on fire and your senses are heightened. And especially if you're in theatrical play with someone that you're in a scene with and you're really present in the moment and putting all your attention on them, that's where magic can happen. And you can block out everything else that's going on around you. That was what made me feel alive, that life was worth living. And as I've aged and have come through many different paths and experiences throughout my life, I've taken a very different journey now than what I was doing 10, 15, even years ago. I missed that part of my life. And the thing that I would say the proverbial, nail in the coffin, so to speak, on that dream really was when I left Los Angeles. Because I thought, realistically, and people say all to me, my best friend, Catherine, she always says to me, well, Sari, if you want to do community theater, of course you can. Of course I can. And community theater is an amazing, wonderful thing. And anybody who wants a creative outlet absolutely should do it. And I think it's a great thing for the community, and it's a great thing for people to tap into their own creativity. However, and this is with a very heavy however and caveat, for me, I just envision more for my life. And there's absolutely nothing wrong with community theater or,
Right. Well, let's go back. Yeah. Let's go back a little bit just so we don't skip ahead because people still don't know the story. So I want to keep the front part short and open up the back part. So the front part, the short is when you moved to Hollywood, was it out of just a time in your life where, you're young and whatever, I'm going to go across the whole country and I'm going to go it, or was it specifically, oh my gosh, I have a friend who just got an agent and I see the path. You know what I mean? Which of those was your trip to Hollywood?
It was definitely I see the path, right? So for me, it was kind of kismet. I was working in New York. I went to NYU. I studied at Tisch. My degree is in drama, right? I worked at MTV on VH1.
I mean, you're from Jersey, so of course your degree is in drama.
Tables. Yeah, absolutely. Came from a very, passionate household. I'm a self-proclaimed pizza bagel, from New Jersey, a Jewish Italian, and I absolutely went out there with a mission in mind. And I was lucky enough that I was able to sell my fitness business, which allowed me a lot of financial freedom where I did not have to work. I was about 23 years old. I had shot a pilot, got paid for the pilot. Ultimately, the pilot got bought by another network. The show never ended up airing on the network. It's just somewhere in their archives. And actually, Kenan Thompson was one of the stars in the show. It was called Ocean City. But I never ended up really getting that traction. Got booked a few small things on The Onion and, some music videos and some, student films, B-list films, C-list films.
So would you? So I guess what I'm trying to get to is, if you tell someone, well, I got married and my husband got offered a great job. nowhere near Los Angeles and I had to give that up. My question would be, did you start to recognize that you might have to grieve this loss before that?
Oh yeah. I was grieving.
Okay.
Yeah, I was grieving well before that. It was a huge grief period. I would probably say 2 or 3 years. But
Okay. So was there a moment or an incident where you just were like, oh crap, reality is looking me in the face. I don't know if this is going to happen, because the reason I'm asking that is because I think that's it's not that it's always not a hard reality, but I think it's even harder when you're still in LA.
yeah, no,
You still
absolutely.
have that present. It's in your face. So
Right.
did
Well,
you
so
recognize it? Was there a moment or?
no, I recognized before that it was already happening before it actually happened. And it was a slow grieving process, but it was right in my face, or slapping me right in the face, especially when my husband got this epic job offer that as a family we sat down and really could not say no to. And he had made a lot of sacrifices for me and our relationship. And quite frankly, he never enjoyed LA, and at the time, my mom was living with us and she still does. My mother also doesn't really enjoy LA. So I had two people in my household that weren't huge fans of where we lived. I
Yeah.
really hung on to staying there, even though my path and my trajectory had fallen off of entertainment. Just from being there, I still had opportunities. Like, I would have people from school that was doing short films call me. Like, I didn't even have to audition. They'd say, "Hey, Sari, we're doing this. Will you come and be in it?" And I'd say, if I could, I'd say sure. So there was still access, right? There
Yeah.
was still the ability and the chance when you're in LA, when you're a part of the culture, where you're in the community, there's kind of like a fire or a zest where things are happening in entertainment and you have access. And even though I
Yeah.
wasn't actively pursuing things probably since 2016 onward to a degree, and granted, the last film that I did was in 2017 and we did reshoots in 2018. I did a music video, a Latin music video, and danced salsa in 2019. But needless to say, I wasn't really in it in the day to day. I had a completely different full-time job,
Right.
running businesses, but I still had access. The thing that, and I already knew and was kind of somewhat grieving or coming to terms with, this dream of mine is probably something that's going to end. However, I felt that by being there, things could potentially still happen, and you didn't know
Sure.
what could happen.
Which
So
I think a
when-
lot of people could say that about New York or LA,
absolutely.
as far as like, well, maybe this isn't what I'm doing to pay the bills, but
Right.
gosh, it's great to still be in the vicinity where you just never know.
Right, exactly.
So I guess, yeah.
Yeah.
So you already were I'm going to say pre-grieving this,
Mhm.
and then you get married, and then even after you get married, you're still in LA. So you're still thinking, well, like we said, I'm glad that I'm still in the area. But then when the job offer happened, was that
Right.
just like a gut punch,
100%.
or was it more like just a final sticker? Like,
No, it was a gut punch. And then when we moved, I was massively depressed for an extended period of time. It was extremely hard adjusting. And it was a hard adjusting for many reasons. It wasn't just the fact that I'm grieving the loss of like literally my life dream for myself, right? Where I'm
Right.
like, how is this going to happen now? There's nothing really in entertainment. And what I mean is in like movies and film, right? In
Yeah.
Northern Virginia. It would be one thing if we moved to Atlanta or somewhere else where TV shows actively film, but there's nothing in my general neighborhood. But it was the fact of that. And on top of it, we moved during COVID and I knew no one. I was leaving all of my friends, my community, my church. I had nothing left at all, and come and move to a neighborhood in a big house and you're just kind of settling in and then just into the day-to-day humdrum of life.
Yeah. And in beautiful wine country of Northern Virginia, but very different than on the streets of LA.
100%. And you're talking to someone who grew up in, the East Coast of New Jersey, but lived in New York for almost 10 years and lived in LA for 10 years to moving to Northern Virginia. And I kind of live in farm country, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I'm really out here. I'm by the Vermont Mountains, Appalachian Trail, rolling hills, farms,
Yeah.
cows, horses. It's very, very different.
Right. You need to throw a yada, yada, yada in there just when you give that general
Yeah.
description. Just to, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. But, okay. So if everyone's tracking, you had this dream, you pre-grieved the dream, you recognized that it was okay to let it go. Did you go through, I don't know, what is I still don't know, is it 4 stages of grief or 5? I don't know what it is, but do you feel that you went through the standard, what is it? Well, denial. Did you go through the denial phase? Like, no, I'm going to fight this, or,
The denial, I think, was happening while I was still in LA.
okay.
Because I
So
already,
that was over.
yeah, I
Okay.
already
And then,
saw that my dream was kind of slowly fading.
right. And do you remember that denial taking shape in any way, like manifesting itself, or did you, like a conversation with yourself, or I don't know, any of that?
No, not really.
Okay. What
Yeah.
about anger? Anger is the next one.
Yeah, I mean, I think this is terrible, and I'm man enough to admit it, but I think I became resentful, to a degree, for like the sacrifices, right?
Yeah.
Because when you're married, life is a sacrifice, and
Right.
my husband's definitely made sacrifices for me, but I think I that's where anger manifested underlying, where I'm like, okay, I'm here now. And so I would say things a lot, especially in the beginning after we moved, like, ugh, I hate this house. Why did you make me buy this house? Things like, this is not the house that I wanted. If I had
Right.
it my way, I would have gotten this other house and I would have been so much happier because I would have been able to do this, 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 and it would have been mine.
Yeah.
So that's how it manifested.
Yeah. Well, that you could say that without the loss of the Hollywood dream too. I mean,
Yes.
that's just I'm married, and I have to be not just married, but married like internally to these other ideas. And now
Right.
there's 2 ideas for everything, and there's 2 opinions of a house. And okay, the third one, which I think is the most interesting, is called bargaining,
Yeah.
where you're going to grieve the loss, but you bargain with, let's say, the universe, and you, like, yeah, maybe I could do it out in Virginia, or there's like this bargaining, like, what if I could still, do you feel that happened at all? Any bargaining?
Not really. Not when we were out in Virginia. What ended up happening with the bargaining, if I had to be, again, honest, it's a little bit more complicated than that, because I was already, in a way, I feel like I was going through the stage of denial and bargaining when I was in LA. And then I became
together.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, okay.
And then the way that I started bargaining, when I was in Virginia after we moved. So first I got angry, and then the bargaining that came thereafter. So my first stage was denial, and then bargaining when I was in LA. I wasn't angry in LA because I was still there. The door was still open. But then when the door closed, the move to Virginia happened. Then I was angry, and then the bargaining was not statements like that, but bargaining why I should get to do really expensive creative things and pursue them, like ballroom dancing, which is an extremely expensive sport, especially if you want to do competitively. So that's where the bargaining kind of came in after the anger had suppressed, trying to explain, well, I don't have creative outlets. This is something where I can perform on stage and I can kind of relive that visceral feeling that I miss, where I get to have something to look forward to work toward, pieces to choreograph, to tell a story,
to dress up for.
Yep. Exactly.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And then, well, we've already heard about the other one. Then depression is the 4th one. I guess you did have that.
Yes.
Yes. And then the 5th one is acceptance.
Yes.
Do you feel wholeheartedly that you have embraced the 5th one? I'm not trying to sell it to you. I didn't create these. I'm just
No, for sure. I want to say yes and no, which is, I guess, is a cop out, right? So I feel like, yes, I've made the choices in my life and I love my life. I'm extremely blessed. And I am happy and I do love my home now, things like that. But I do still have forms of regret,
Sure,
absolutely. And to
sure.
say that I didn't have regret, I think would be dishonest of me.
Yeah, I think when we're growing up, um, well, even past growing up, like even in our 20s, there's words that people will reject just because they haven't gone through them yet. So people will say like, well, why would anyone have a midlife crisis? That sounds so stupid. I used to say, if you want a convertible, just get a convertible. That's why I got a convertible earlier because I'm like
Right.
that. And then people will say that when they're younger, well, I'm never going to have any regrets. I'm going to live every day. And then you get older and you realize, you know what? Life happens.
Right. And that's bullcrap too. I hate that thing where people say, oh, no regrets. I regret all the bad things that have happened to me in my life, which
Hmm.
is most people would say, what? Think about it. If God forbid someone's assaulted, most people regret that or would say, I wish that didn't happen to me. But every bad thing that's ever happened to me in my life, and there's been a handful, I
Mhm.
don't regret. They happened to me and helped me to become and form the person that I am today. The things that I regret are the things that I didn't do. That's the stuff I regret. The,
Oh,
the
hmm.
things that I didn't get to live and the opportunities that I missed. And
Yeah,
that's why I always say, when the door opens, you got to walk through it because at the end of the day, you never know what's going to be on the other side. And I could also be saying the flip side of things too, where if I put my foot down and my husband got the job offer, but I say, hey, look, I'm not going to make this move
hmm.
across country. You have a great
Right,
job here. Let's just stay. And also, who knows what would have happened. But that was the opportunity that had presented itself at the time. And it was a
yeah,
positive opportunity. And just because I had fear around it and I was worried about what I was giving up, I had to walk through the door and come out on the other side. And it
right.
wasn't easy, but I'm glad that I did. And I think it was what was intended and meant to happen.
Well, and I think it's clear not just for you, but for your extended family. I mean,
Right.
your mom is happy, your husband is happy, your pets are happy, your house is happy, your sister.
Yeah.
So I think one of the dangers I think that and I grew up, I think the reason I can say this without a lot of, um, what's the word? Some people say like, well, yeah. Anyway, um, I grew up so individualistic, I didn't want, I pushed back any semblance or hint of crowds or going along with the crowd. But that's
Right.
part of because I'm a Gen Xer and Gen Xers grew up neglected, come home from school, you make your own adventures in life, you have your own job, you get your own money, you live your own life. And even though you don't like that when you're little because it can be fearful or lonely, you get to embrace that and like that's part of who you are. But I do think, as with a lot of things in life that I think we're seeing now in the greater world, the pendulum can swing too far in the other direction.
Sure.
And all of our moving around that we've done as a Western society, I think ends up having worse effects, even just for family, being close to family as you get older.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm much happier, and I moved back from Nashville to take care of my mom, and it's not just good for her. It's beneficial for me. My
Right.
finances are better. My just everything is better. Making sacrifices, I think, like I said, I think the individualism that we have in America has had its good points, but I think the pendulum we saw it swing too far. Um,
Hmm.
like where people just will go, oh, well, I got a good job opportunity over here. Never mind that my family is going to miss me horribly. I'm just going to go here. And, it's not that you should always say no to that, but it's that maybe you should think of other people isn't the end of the world.
Hmm.
You know, I don't know.
Absolutely. I completely agree with that. And I think that can be said about a lot of things. It's
Right.
like our career paths, our vision for ourselves and our own personal journeys, right? Because especially as a millennial, we're taught to think about ourselves first,
Right.
putting ourselves first. How do we get ahead? Very career oriented, woman independent, woman
Right.
work, I don't need a man
Right.
type of. But at the end of the day, you can even say that about marriage. I mean, they just
Yeah.
came out with a study recently saying that in the last 15 years there's been more older people over 50 that are getting divorced than they did in the prior generation. And I
Hmm.
think today it's just so easy for people to get divorced because why not? Like you have this higher expectation of what marriage is. You don't want that humdrum. You expect your partner, your spouse to make you better in every single way. And once they're not, you're like, oh, well, this isn't what I signed up for. Bye. And
Right.
it's so easy to do that. And especially with social media, back in the day, if you wanted to meet someone and get support elsewhere
Yeah.
outside of your spouse or your partner, you'd have to meet them in person. Right now, you have the ability with technology at your fingertips. You're constantly inundated with stuff. You can do it very, very easily. But what was so interesting about the study that I read is that the couples that ended up staying married all the way to the end, they actually did a huge survey of over 700 couples. And they all said marriage is hard, or really hard. But they said that they're happier now and that their happiness is so much greater now that they're older, that they pushed through during that time, and that their love now is experiencing the courtship that they originally had when they first got together.
Hmm.
So like it almost cycles, the different stages of life. But anyway, just
Right.
in terms of what you were saying,
Yeah.
made me think of that,
Well,
because-
yeah, and you could right. Yep. Well, the rain is starting here, so I'm gonna. I just thought of a good final little story to tell you, which I think is a good way to wrap this up. Is that because you were saying that you don't there's things that you don't regret because of something else
Can
happens,
you hear
even
me,
though it
Alden?
sounds negative at the beginning, right? So I don't know if you know that Billy Joel sort of tried out LA too. Did you know that?
I
That
didn't.
yeah, like in this, I think it was in the 70s. Everyone was moving to LA, go to California, put flowers in your hair, right? In the late 60s. So in the 70s, I don't know if it was his agent or someone told him, you got to go to Hollywood. Like, you got to make it in Hollywood, right? That's where you got to go to make it. And it didn't fit. He's an East Coaster. It wasn't him.
Mhm.
But despite moving back to New York and totally just realizing, man, LA is not for me. If I'm going to make it, it's not here. Where did he write the song Piano Man?
Well, I guess it's got to be in New York.
At a bar on Wilshire Boulevard, at a piano bar on Wilshire Boulevard in Los Angeles.
Wow.
So even though that section of his life was like, you could have said, oh gosh, what a waste. I tried LA for 3 or 4 years. It just spit me out the other end. I'm not in LA. But he, instead of fighting it, he embraced at least what he was there for, learned from
Right.
it. And I think it might have been called the Executive Piano Bar or something. It's not there anymore, but it's where he wrote Piano Man, and all those characters, Davy and the Navy, and all those characters in the song were actually characters that this came up to the bar. And he was a little bit frustrated, and he thought, yeah, okay, it's like they're saying, just sing us a song, Piano Man. Like, that's all I'm good for.
Right.
But that's the line that everyone loves. And that was at a point in his life when some could argue, oh man, that was a mistake. Glad you're back in New York. Now you can really get serious with your career.
Right. Yeah.
So,
it's a great story. I didn't know
it's
that.
interesting. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thanks for participating in episode 3. Are you glad you did?
Yeah, absolutely. Super fun.
Yeah.
We could do it again and answer some other questions.
I know. Well, there was another one that I think would be good for you too. We can think about it for a future. It's almost everyone's favorite question. It's your whole life is determined by 2 choices.
Yeah, that was my favorite question of the bunch.
Yeah. I think so far in my life, that's the best question I've come up with. Because I can tell when even people's physical like they change when I ask that question. Like they put their phone down, they stop and they go, wait, what did you say? And then they ask again and then they go, oh, it's like nobody ever asked. So anyway, that's one. Maybe that's a down the road, a future episode.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, well, tell your family I said hi. Tell Chad what's up.
Will
And
do.
I'm glad you're enjoying Virginia for whatever it's worth.
Thanks. I appreciate that.
Locked inside, hidden